Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another podcast episode. My name is Alicia Gogan, the host of the Glow Up Secrets podcast, where I help you expand your mind and become more self-aware so that you can glow up into the best version of yourself. Hello, everyone. Happy Thursday. If you're listening to this on a Thursday, I hope you guys are having an amazing first week of the new year. And with that said, I figured let's make an episode on how to have a financial glow up. I have been talking about how I wanted to make a new updated episode regarding finances. Now, I definitely have talked about finances a few times on the podcast, but I also had a very big video on, I honestly forget the title. I think it has something to do with like how to enter your rich girl era on YouTube. This was like last year, like very, like such a long time ago, and it blew up. Y'all really love that. And I think even for myself, being somebody who is really interested in self-development and developing honestly all areas of her life, one of the things that I had to really focus on was my finances. And I think for many of us, finances is such a huge part of our lives. We are trying to figure out how to make more money, how to feel more secure, how to live out our dream lives. So I just feel like when it comes to a glow up, we can't really not talk about finances. So I figured, based off of everything that I have learned and been through, I wanted to share my personal story, just a little bit of how I worked myself out of debt and not having a lot of money. I am somebody who is definitely in a very different financial situation than I once was, and I want to kind of give you all of my real tips, the things that I personally did to financially glow up. I also want to talk about the 4 stages of wealth and just giving you some tips and tricks and things that I do when it comes to personal finance and investing and I don't know, just any sort of tips and advice. Now, I just want to be very clear. Obviously, I am not a financial advisor, so this is all just things that I have done. I am not perfect. There are many ways in which that you can level up your finances. You have to find what works for you. I find that listening to people who have similar stories to me has always really actually helped me create change in my life versus listening to people who might on paper tell you this is how you get out of debt or this is how you should do things, but life is not perfect. So maybe you guys will resonate with my story. And just one more thing, I am definitely still glowing up when it comes to my finances. There's always going to be more goals in all areas of my life, even as I show up on the podcast talking about things that I've either achieved or helping you guys through things. There are always so many things that I'm working on, but I will say I have absolutely up-leveled my finances. I, for the first year of being a content creator, hit well over 6 figures, which was just mind-blowing to me. And I say that just because I was somebody who I don't even think that I ever broke past 50K a year. Mind you, I was in my 20s and I had jobs that weren't necessarily like salary jobs, although I did have one but paid really shitty and whatever. I'm going to give you that whole backstory. I just wanted to say that. Now, obviously being a content creator, I think that is so much more money to be made online, in my personal opinion. So if you feel like you're in your grind right now and you feel like, let's say 6 figures is so far out of your realm, do not feel like you are behind. I think because I make money on the internet, it definitely did allow me to hit 6 figures way quicker than what like a normal 9-to-5 would have been able to give me. Not to say that you can't make that, because I know a lot of people who make that in 9-to-5s, but like internet is a different type of industry and money. Also, I have amazing credit now because I really worked on it throughout my 20s. I have really worked on my intentional spending, but mainly I really changed my mindset from scarcity and lack, which that was my entire life because it really just had to be, to this more abundant, more trusting in the universe, more slowing down and really just getting aligned in my life. So that's just kind of where I'm at right now. But I have so many more goals, so many more things to work on. So I guess we'll start with talking about getting yourself out of debt, and I'll bring it to my personal story. The reason why I really did have a financial glow up is because this big realization of when I was in my early 20s that I was in debt. I had money that went to collections that I didn't even know about, which really impacted my credit from a school loan. I was like spending so much money on things that I just didn't need. And I never just had enough to save or put away. Like I wasn't a saver. I wasn't really taught too much about saving, didn't invest my money at all. Like it was giving fight or flight energy. And now, mind you, when you're in your 20s, this is what you do. You learn, you grow, you make mistakes, you whatever. But that was the situation that I was in. And then of course, you guys know my family situation. My dad had passed away when I was 16. My mom was going through her own personal life issues that I didn't have a lot of help in my life. So around my early 20s, like I really had to financially glow the F up because nobody was paying my bills. I started to realize like I don't have money and I need money. I need money because I have this dream life that I want to live out. But in general, I don't want to feel like I'm always broke. I want to have money to be able to buy things. I want to make money doing things that I actually want instead of grinding and busting my ass. Like there was a lot of things that I needed to work on. I also ended up getting a car. I remember my first car was a 2006 Mazda 3 hatchback. Shout out to everyone who has a Mazda. Love a good Mazda. When I actually got a newer car, I ended up selling it because I live downtown now, but I ended up going with another Mazda hatchback Sport, which is just, I love that car. But anyways, my first car was a Mazda, but I wasn't able to get a cosigner. I had no credit. So when I was looking for cars, I wasn't able to get approved for many loans for cars because I didn't have any sort of credit because I wasn't using credit cards. Although when I ended up getting credit cards, I just ended up getting in credit card debt. But even without having any credit card, you don't have any credit really. So it kind of looks like you have bad credit in a way, even if you don't have any debt. So I didn't have that. So then my next option was to get like a cosigner, but my mom also didn't have good credit and I didn't have anyone in my family that could cosign for me. So it's kind of screwed that way. So the only way that I was actually able to end up getting a loan was by getting a loan with a very high interest. Mind you, I did not understand interest when I got this car. And you know, God bless my mom because she only knew so much as well. But I was not really taught. And I think my interest rate for my car loan, like a car payment, was I think like 26% interest. I know. Now, you know what? I look back and I say, you live and you learn, okay? And I really needed a car. This is the thing. I really needed a car and I didn't have money saved up to get like a crappy car. Although this car was crappy by the way. Like it wasn't like top of the line, but I really wanted a car and I needed one because I needed to go to work and stuff like that. Whatever, I got into that situation. And then probably about a year or two later, I knew at the beginning that it was a little bit too high of interest, but I wasn't really responsible and I didn't really understand the impacts of that. So I kind of just like signed myself up because I figured, well, I was able to pay the amount of money that I needed monthly. But just because you can pay, let's say $300 a month doesn't mean it's a good decision to get something that has like, let's say a 26% interest rate on it, whatever. So I started to realize I was throwing out a lot of money for this car, although I still needed it. So I used it. I had the collections debt. And then when I was using my credit card, I just realized I was using my credit cards a lot more and spending money I just didn't really have. And I was buying like lots of wellness things and books and clothes and going out and doing whatever. I spent also a lot of money when I used to binge eat a lot. Like there were so many things I was spending money on that it was starting to make my life crumble, honestly. And I realized, like I said, I wasn't getting any help and things were only really going to get worse if I didn't start to take control of my finances. And so I sat down with myself and I made a very big plan. Also, mind you, I had a lot of work to get done with cavities in my teeth and I didn't have insurance. So I was like paying a lot for that. But I understood the ramifications of letting something like my dental work sit and like not addressing it. I knew down the line it would just be worse. And I knew again, down the line in general with everything would be worse. And I also realized I really needed good credit in order for me to eventually one day be able to get an apartment, be able to get like all of the great things that I wanted. So I needed to make sure I was out of debt and that I was spending correctly. So in my personal life, I realized that the first thing that I need to do is to pay off my debt, because my debt was ruining my credit. It was stressing me out, and it was only growing because when you have debt on credit cards or even in collections or anything, there's interest rates on it. So if you don't start paying that off, essentially it's just going to get bigger and bigger. Now, I want to quickly pause here and say, if you go online, a lot of people who talk about finances, and I will say this personally, what I believe is a lot of these people haven't been in these certain situations. The ones that will say, the standard, make sure your debt is paid off and at the same time put 10, 15% away in investing and saving, blah, blah, blah. I beg to differ this from being somebody who didn't come from money and had a really shitty financial situation. It was kind of not possible for me to allocate 10% or 15% of my income to my savings and like short-term investments, long-term investments while I was trying to pay off debt, because I just wasn't making a lot of money. So what I personally did was put all of my money towards my debt first, because that was the thing that was stressing me out. That was the thing that was going to get me closer to what I actually wanted, which was better credit. And I was willing to kind of take the L on having like 10% of my income to emergency funds, because honestly, my life was emergency anyways. Like I was already in fight or flight, and I would have rather put that money towards debt than put it aside. Am I saying don't do that? Like don't have some sort of your money set aside as emergency fund? No, if you can do that, obviously do that. And I think that it's still a good advice, right? Because of course, like what if something happened and you weren't able to pay your rent that month or whatever? Like it's great to have savings, but I just lived a lifestyle where I never had savings anyways. And when I realized that I needed to financially glow up, I was like, well, you know what? At this point, I don't have any savings anyways. I would rather just pay down my debt. So I'm just being transparent. That is what I did. I feel like I just hear a lot of people always say that, and I'm just like, yeah, but like it's not always black and white like that. Like people have so many different types of financial situations that sometimes I think it can overwhelm people when you hear like, oh, like pay off your debt while saving and stuff, or like while investing, and you should really start investing now. And it's true, you really should as soon as you can, but I don't know. Anyways, that's just what I did. So I wanted to tackle all of my consumer debt. And what consumer debt really is debt that you shouldn't probably have based off of your shitty spending habits, realistically. And I can also put in collection debt. And collection debt is essentially, let's say you didn't pay your bill on something, maybe $1,000 to your phone bill or your school or whatever it is, and you've continuously missed that payment, and that company is now decided to stop reaching out to you and instead get debt collectors to reach out to you on behalf of them to get their money back. But you're also now having to pay so much in interest because you didn't decide to pay down that debt. It's just not a good situation and not a good call to have. But I also did have student loan debt, which I wasn't really stressed about because usually student loan debt has like a lower interest rate. But on top of that, I just made sure that I was paying my minimum. And it's not a bad thing to have debts like if you're financing a car, or if you have a student loan, or if you have a mortgage. Like there are kind of good and bad debts, but I just wanted to pay off the stuff that I just knew was from just overconsumption and things that were just wasting my money and also not giving me any return on my investment. It is totally okay to finance your car and have a loan as long as you can obviously pay it, and hopefully that it's at a lower interest. Same with a mortgage, same with even student loans. That's like not that big of a deal. So in order for me to pay down my consumer debt, which was my collections, which was all of my credit cards, which was, I also had a personal loan at one point, which again, the personal loan was really just me spending money on things that I didn't need or just whatever. I needed to first live below my means so that I can save enough money extra each month to be able to put down towards debt. But I also needed to find a way to make more money. And I think that this is a very big problem with a lot of people who get into these debt situations, is usually they just don't have enough money. So they put things on credit cards, but also that they're living above their means. So one of the first things that I did was, first, I needed to call the collections and I needed to see what my balances were for everything and what I needed to pay at least the minimum balance. I started there because when you pay minimum balances, whether that's on your credit card, like every single month, I still do this today, it is going to help you not screw up your credit because you're not going to be missing payments. So I had to call the collections and make a payment plan with them because I obviously couldn't pay. I think it was like $4,000 or $5,000 that I had to pay to them, and I couldn't pay it all lump sum. So I called them and I made a payment plan on what I was able to actually give them each month. I also made sure to set up like all my credit cards and personal loans that I was at least paying the minimum so that it wouldn't continue to screw up my credit. And then obviously I looked at my total balances of everything and I did the calculations of, okay, like how much money am I currently making right now and how much money can I currently put towards that every single month and how long will that take me? Now, to help me be able to put as much money as possible down towards these debts meant I had to look at my lifestyle and I had to cut down certain things that I was doing. So firstly, I had to stop using my credit cards. I literally stopped using my credit cards for things that I literally didn't have the money for. Even when it came to my living situation, I had roommates for a few of the times that I was living in different places to help offset the cost of like actually living alone, even though that's what I really wanted at the time. I made sure to take inventory of literally all of my spending for the month, whether that be entertainment, eating out, my groceries, every single thing, nails, hair, like clothes, every single thing that I spent money on, and I cut back on all of that. I stopped spending money on a bunch of products, bunch of wellness things, a bunch of hair, nails, going to the grocery store and just not having a budget of how much money that I could actually spend. Like I did a whole inventory of how much I was spending. And I really do think that this is important in any stage of your financial situation. But I really think that we really don't do this enough. And I'm actually going to do this for the new year as well. Just kind of go through, all of my spending, although I kind of do that every single month anyways. But I didn't really realize how much money I was just spending on random things. And things that I would tell myself when I was looking at how much money I was spending was, what is the return on this investment? And I'll give you a quick example. You spending $100 on like a shopping spree every single month, what is the return on you spending $100 on clothes that you might wear like 1, 2, 3 times? Like how often are you wearing that? Versus let's say if you're spending $100 on a gym membership and you're actually using that gym membership, but maybe you're not using that gym membership, so you need to be real with yourself and cancel that gym membership. Like I did a whole inventory of everything. So that helped me be able to allocate a little bit more money every single month to pay down my debts. Now, because I had a few different types of debts, and this is outside of like the student loan I was thinking about, or even my car at that point, even though I realized like I had to deal with my car situation at some point, I realized that I wanted to first do the collections debt because that was the thing that was going to impact my credit the most. So I just threw money every single month as much as I could, lived below my means. Every cent was going to that so I can get that out of the way. And then I focused on my credit card debt. Now, there's different ways a lot of people pay down debt. There is the snowball effect, meaning let's say you have 3 credit cards and one has like 500, one has 2,000, and the other one has 5,000. A snowball effect is essentially paying down the credit card that has the lowest balance first. And now that you have $500 extra a month that you no longer have to pay for that one credit card because you've already paid it down, you use that and you throw it down every single month to that higher paying one, the higher balance one, until you do that again with the third one. Now, some people will say you want to pay down the debt that has the highest interest. But I did find for the most part, my consumer debts all had around like 20% interest because that's usually what credit cards have. And like I said, I just made sure to do my collections first, which had a very high interest rate, I'm pretty sure as well. But I think doing the snowball effect, I think that's what it's called, snowball effect or snowball, whatever, something. You can just like Google it. helped me the most, because when you think about having a lot of debt and you're like throwing your money away, even though you used it back then to buy stupid shit. And honestly, I will actually say this, not all the things that I spent my money on were stupid. Like, I was trying to survive. I was trying to buy groceries and gas and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it just like, it wasn't my money. But whatever. Hitting small little goals and wins really helped me feel like I was getting on track to something, because paying off debt does feel like a lot and you don't want to do it. But if you have the snowball effect where it's like, okay, the next 3 months, I'm going to pay down this credit card of $500. And then after 3 months, you've done one thing, like that feels so accomplishing, versus trying to tackle something that's like a 20K debt. But of course, if you only have 20K, then that's what you're going to have to do. So I guess it doesn't really matter. But also, I didn't like the idea of, let's say bringing it back to my 3 credit cards, splitting my money 3 ways and paying each one of them every single month past the minimum, because it just didn't feel like I was ever getting anywhere. So personally, the snowball effect kind of worked for me because I was able just to like dive all my money into the one debt. But again, I also made sure that I was doing the minimum payment. So that's essentially what I had to do to start myself off, was look at my debts, look at how much money that I'm spending, make sure that I'm doing the minimums on everything, and making a plan and seeing, okay, well, how long is this going to take me realistically to be able to pay this down? Now, another thing that I really started to focus on when I kind of had that plan for myself was, how is it that I am going to make more money? Because when you do make a plan of like, okay, realistically, how much time will this take for me to pay down my debts, depending on what you have, sometimes it's like, damn, like that's giving like 3 to 5 years, which is totally fine, by the way, if that's just what it is. Like, what are we going to do? You just have to make that plan. But for me, I was like, well, we need to speed this up. Okay. So my first ever job was at Tim Hortons, which was a minimum wage job. So then I got a co-op at a golf club, and then I ended up getting hired there. And that was like the best decision that I could have ever made, because that was a serving job. So I was getting tips on top of the server's wage, which was not that much less than minimum wage. So I got into an industry where I was essentially making a lot more an hour than a person my age would be making, let's say if they started out in a 9 to 5. I'm not saying that that's potentially a good decision, because obviously there's benefits of going into a corporation and maybe you're starting off making minimum wage or $18 an hour or whatever it is, and then you're going to work yourself up because that's the career you want to go in. Of course, like that's what technically we're kind of taught to do in college, but I didn't even know where I was wanting to be. So I wasn't in like the corporate scene anyways. So even before I was even thinking about what am I going to do after college, what 9 to 5 or whatever type of industry I'm going to have, I need to make sure to pick a job that I'm making more an hour. And I just want to say this, I guess, for all of the people who either are currently in college, currently struggling with their life circumstance when it comes to finances. And I know everyone is completely different and some people just like can't do this. I totally get this, but I saw a lot of my friends who would stay small and work at jobs like working at the mall. And I think that that's a very poor financial decision. And I mean, if you can do what I'm about to say to do, if you can, please go be a server. In so many ways, is this better for you, in my personal opinion? And I know it's not for everyone, because I know people don't want to do it because it's like, oh my God, no, I don't have confidence in this, that. First of all, I didn't want to do it either. And one thing my mom did tell me to do was to be a server / a bartender. And that definitely changed my life, because that's what she used to do. And she made bank. She told me, don't keep, like at first I worked at Tim Hortons, which was a minimum job. But she was like, don't go to the mall and only work for like an hourly pay. Go get a job at a diner, go get a job at a restaurant, go get a job bartending, whatever, because you're going to make so much more money an hour. And if we're talking about working smarter, not harder, and if we're talking about paying off debt, please, if you can, do it. And I mean, just to the ones who might be like, oh, I don't really have confidence, or like, I don't know. It's like, it's very scary. I get it. It's totally scary sometimes to think about being a bartender or like serving versus, working at a mall where you're just And this is totally fine because we need people who are working at the malls. I'm not trying to bag on a job. A job is a job, baby. A job is a job. But I promise you, you're going to make more money as a server. It is going to be more work and it's going to be a hustle, but it is great money. And, I actually learned a lot of people skills and I became very confident and out of my shell by being a server and a bartender. I think a lot of people ask me like, how do you have so much confidence to either come on camera or do a lot of like, even in person, I'm very like a social person. There's many reasons, but I definitely think one of the reasons is because I was a server and a bartender. So anyways, I ended up working at a golf club and I was a bartender. I also did banquet serving, which we ended up getting like tips that way and stuff. So I just worked in that industry and got used to making more money an hour than maybe the average person that would be working, let's say, a job at the mall. And these were the two things that I focused on for a few years before anything else that I'm going to talk about in this episode, okay? I had a plan. I knew my debts. I became very aware of where I was spending my money, and I did my best to make as much money in the shortest amount of time possible at my job. And when I mean shortest amount of time, I still worked a lot. I made sure that I was working all the time. I was picking up shifts and bringing it back to when I was younger. I had friends who were basically in the same situation as me, and they decided to party on the weekends or they wanted their weekends off. Baby, I was working. And I'm not really here to like bag on people, whatever. I'm just saying, I'm just being real. There's going to come a time that if you want to financially glow up, you got to put in that work just for a little bit. Understand it's not going to be forever. And if you do this and you do it now, you're going to be better off. Now, I want to talk about some mindset stuff because the mindset piece really allowed me to move from just basically breaking even and paying off debt to starting the process of learning how to make more money along with not getting myself into more debt and like slowly over time being able to put money away and feeling more secure and like making more money to the point where I am at right now. During the time I was getting my life together financially, but also thinking about what I was going to do after school and like college, all that kind of stuff, I got really into self-development, right? And this is the time where my home life was really bad. So I actually dove into this a lot. And I got into this realm of a lot of mindset work. And I think everyone goes through this phase, or at least the ones who probably like listen to like a lot of self-development. I learned about manifestation. I learned about abundance. I learned about The Secret. I read the book. I watched the movies. The first entry level of, oh, I'm going to affirm that I'm like wealthy and I am abundant and then like you're going to get it, like all that kind of stuff. And I definitely have episodes on the abundant mindset, and I'm very realistic in life. I don't just think that you can sit here and like write 100 million times that you're just going to be a millionaire and you're going to get it. Like you need to take action. But I do think that your mindset plays a huge role in your ability to continue to persist through times that are hard and to make the right decisions for yourself, but also to put your attention and focus on making more money in your life and where you want to go in your life. You have to work on the beliefs that led you most likely to a not abundant life. And so I really started to work on the beliefs that I held around money and why I found myself in patterns of always only breaking even, wasting my money on things that weren't really that important to me in my life. I recognize the fact that I did come from a household where I wasn't taught certain things about investments and I wasn't even good at math. I didn't understand interest rates. Like there was so many things that I just wasn't educated on. And once I really got my mindset correct, I think that this was a time where I was able to see, okay, what I have learned throughout my life about money and moving through life is it's outdated, it's not helping me, and it's keeping a lot of people realistically stuck. And I think the biggest thing for me was I was always moving in scarcity. I always felt like there was lack everywhere. I wasn't going to make enough. I was always stressing about money. And on one hand, it was so understandable why I would stress about money because I was in debt and I was trying to pay off things, and then my family life was a mess and I didn't have any help. Of course, I was going to feel like so stressed out about money, but I started to realize that stressing about money wasn't going to help me make more money. And actually being more grateful for the things that I did have, having belief in myself and belief in my dreams, and also taking action was the thing that was going to help me get out of my situation faster. So that's what I focused on. I stopped stressing about money and stressing about the things that I couldn't change and being pissed off at the fact that I had to pay off these debts and, oh my God, I don't have the car like everyone else, or I'm not making this much money, or everyone has this career, or I don't have it yet, blah, blah, blah. That's not getting anywhere. So I'm going to link a episode down below of how to stop stressing about money, because if you are somebody who constantly stresses about money, once you've decided that you want to have a financial glow up, you need to watch that episode, because you can't really have both, right? Like you can't decide that you're going to want to pay down debt and work on your credit and do all these things while I simultaneously every single day waking up and being like, oh my God, stressing about how I don't have enough, or everyone has this and I'm not anywhere near where everyone else is. And oh my God, like, how am I going to make money? This, that, and the third. Like you can't, it's really like contradicting, and it's going to make you end up being emotional, probably overspending because you feel like you're never going to get out of your situation. Maybe you will cope with spending money on, again, things that you don't need. So mindset work is very, very huge. And I think honestly, the first thing that was super helpful for me is actually just having a gratitude list of things that I currently had in my life. Like I was grateful for the extra shifts that I got to be able to pay off my debt. I was grateful that I was able to get on payment plans. I was grateful that I was able to even pay down just the minimum amount. I was grateful to be able to see that 2-3 years down the line, I was going to be out of debt. I was grateful that I was able to get up every single day and have the ability to go serve. I was grateful that I was in an industry where I was making more money an hour than a lot of people doing minimum wage. Like I had to just be grateful for my shitty Mazda that I had, and the fact that yes, okay, I'm at a high interest right now, but you know what? It's getting me to work, and being able to get to work is being able to pay down more debt. Like I had to really, really be grateful. Now, one thing that I do want to mention is I made a Heal to Manifest guide. It will be linked down below. And if you are somebody who wants to work on the mindset and your beliefs around the things that you can manifest and create and have in your life, and see how the beliefs that you hold are actually keeping you stuck, and how the beliefs that you hold are dictating your actions moving forward in your life, I would suggest checking that out and seeing if that's something that you actually want. If you don't have the money for it, totally fine. I don't want to like push anything on you guys, but the reason why I bring this up is because I think that to be abundant and to manifest your dream life, honestly, is to go through a healing journey. I realized that on one hand, yes, I made a plan to pay off my debt, and I made a plan to be able to save more and make a little bit more money. At the end of the day, your beliefs and your actions and how you view the world and what you think that you are deserving and what you think you can get in your life and the things that you're telling yourself on a day-to-day basis is going to really affect your ability to make money, your ability to find opportunities and to find answers in your life. And I think we're all operating from a lot of scarcity and trauma in our lives. That is why a lot of us are in shitty situations in the first place. If you really just look back in your life and you see, oh, well, actually, I'm living out a lot of the types of behaviors that my parents did. I wasn't taught this. We live paycheck to paycheck. I have a money story. You always have a money story. Like, these are things at the end of the day, you got to go to the root. And, you know, you could talk all day about budgeting and making plans, but you got to know yourself. You got to know where you came from. You got to know why you got to where you were at in the first place, and to support yourself through this journey. So I just think that working on your beliefs and being able to be your own best friend and get yourself through hard times is the best thing that I ever did for myself. And I was able to then get myself to where I'm currently at right now. So fast forward to a little bit after I graduated college, I ended up getting a 9-to-5 job at a tech company as a wellness coordinator, but I wasn't making a lot of money an hour. I think I was only making like $18 to $20 an hour. And this is like after taxes and everything. Like it wasn't a good enough salary to be able to pay the bills that I had. And mind you, I still was being good with like living below my means, and I still wasn't really able to sustain my expenses, even as I was either like paying off the rest of my debts or not even having debt at that point. So I always had to keep a serving job because it was really good money. And I also wanted to have a goal of actually saving money at that point, like after I paid off debt. So I didn't want to let go of a serving job because I kind of needed it to be able to sustain my life. But also I had no money saved for like emergency funds or anything. So I wasn't in a point where I was able to just give that up. But I started to realize working this 9 to 5, and the hours varied, but working that 9 to 5 and on top of serving was a lot for me. It was a lot. It was a grind. And mind you, I understood that was just going to be a grind that I needed to do because I had made decisions in my life and I had goals in my life. So I was going to have to work. Like that's what you do in your 20s, you know? Like I had a knowing that one day I wasn't going to have to be here, but that was the situation. Now, what I was realizing was this job that I had, this 9 to 5, although it like felt like I was very secure because it was like a 9 to 5 out of college, two things were affecting me. One was the fact that I just was not making enough money and I was just really drained, and that I was also making way more money an hour being a bartender. But also I didn't actually really want to be in that field of work anymore. I decided to want to like go into a new field. This is actually around the time where COVID happened. I had a lot of health issues and I had to take a lot of different breaks, and like a lot of things were going on. And I was way more interested in mental health instead of working with people when it came to fitness and health and wellness, because I started to realize that a lot of the reasons why people were falling off of healthy habits had to do with their psychology and mental health. And I went through the same thing, and that's the birth of my content in general came from all of that. So I kind of realized like I didn't actually want to be in that field, at least working in that 9 to 5 area anyways. So I was like, there's not really a point of me dragging this on anymore because I'm not even, this job is not really paying my bills anyways. And I really need to not be in this situation of financially struggling, and I'm making more money being a bartender. Now, before I decided to leave the security of that 9 to 5, I still wanted to have a plan as well, because yes, bartending to me was always something that was very stable. I still wanted to figure out like, well, where am I going though? Because I knew I didn't want to be a bartender forever, but I had no shame in working as a bartender and a server. I didn't care. I was making more money an hour. Like instead of getting screwed from the government, I did not care. But at that time is when I started to grow my social media, and I knew that this is where I wanted to go eventually. I wanted to start a podcast. I was on TikTok. I already talked about this. I wanted to do YouTube eventually. Like I had these goals in mind, and I also knew the money that I could potentially be making on social media, not like I was just doing it for money, obviously, because you never want to start something just based off of money, because then you won't do it. And I've done that before in years. I knew I had a gift that I could actually amplify on social media. But on top of that, I knew that there was definitely more money to be made. And on top of that, I was doing brand deals here and there, and I was able to kind of see how much money that was making, like whatever. Again, nothing is guaranteed. So I wasn't really basing it off of the fact that I was just going to be able to make all this money online. But I had belief in something that I really wanted to start my own business. So deciding that I wanted to do this social media thing, and knowing that, yes, I was able to make more money, I decided, let me leave my 9 to 5 because it's not where I wanted to be, and let me go full-time bartending and make bank, because I wanted to now learn how to sustain my finances where I wasn't getting in more debt. I was able to at least pay my rent and everything on my own, and then work on being able to make more money and obviously be able to save, because everyone wants more money, obviously. But just because I left my 9 to 5 does not mean that my work stopped. I was making more money, but also I was able to put my time into my social media, which then ended up making me more money in the long run. But up front, it wasn't making me money. And I think that this is something very important for people to understand. Maybe right now something is not making you money, but down the line it is, and it's actually worth you putting in a few extra hours on the weekend into your side hustle or your business. And that's exactly what I did until I was able to make a lot of money, more money than I was making busting my ass as a server. And on top of that, something that I wanted to actually do full time. So once I started making extra money with social media, that's when I had a plan to start putting money towards saving and investing. And bringing it back to what I had said originally, if I'm being honest, when I was paying off debt, I was not saving any of my money for these emergency funds or this, that, and the third. I eventually did like small amounts, but I ended up just always using it to pay off debt. Again, I'm not saying that this is the right way to do things, but that's just what I did. So once I was maintaining and making a little bit of like extra money, this is where I had more flexibility and room, I guess, to be able to not only maybe put some money towards investments, but also to think about how I wanted to make more money. And I look at some of the extra money that I started to make, and I use that money to reinvest in myself, actually. So instead of, oh, okay, now I'm out of debt and now I have a little bit extra money and even past putting away to investments, the money that I do have to spend, where can I intentionally spend this and where can I get a better return on my investment? So a lot of the things that I spend my money on are reinvested into my own self, meaning a skill, meaning a course, meaning in terms of my business, like editing, like things that are going to eventually grow my money even more. And bring it back to, let's say you do have an extra $100 a month now that you're out of debt or whatever. You can either spend that on clothes, and I'm not saying you can't spend it on clothes or spend it on whatever you want. You want to budget for that, whatever, this, that. Or you can put $100 towards therapy, towards getting tests that you need to get done for your health, towards going to the dentist and making sure you're getting a routine checkup or getting a cavity filled, $100 towards a course that you want to buy in which is going to give you another skill to be able to make more money, let's say for coaching or whatever. Like, those are the things I started to think about, because at the end of the day, where you spend your money does matter. And I think for a long time, I didn't understand that really the money I was spending was not giving me a good return on my investment. I was spending money on things that weren't really changing my life. I was, spending on money on like clothes or food that, again, I would wear the clothes a few times or I would eat the chocolate a few times, but I wasn't really thinking about the return on my investment. And that's just something I wasn't really taught. And I think even when it comes to your time, right? It's not just about money, but where are you spending your time? Now, for me, I spent a lot of my extra time, especially in my early 20s, making more money so I could get out of debt. But even if you don't necessarily have to do that and you're like kind of good with your financial situation, where are you spending your time? Are you spending your time draining your energy with people who aren't really uplifting or you don't even really want to be with? Or are you spending your time either with people who are uplifting you, people who have great networks, connections that can maybe even help you in a certain industry? It doesn't have to always be about you getting something from someone, but really just thinking like, where am I putting my time and how do I want to be living my life? Because you're only going to get older and you're never going to get your time back. So really thinking about where you put your time and effort is going to be so important if you want to financially glow up. And I think when it comes to your career, at the end of the day, you're going to make money through your career, meaning it's going to take some years probably for you to work up the ladder in a corporate job or to build a business or whatever it is that you want to do. So there's a lot of extra time that you have that you could be allocating to helping yourself get to where you need to go faster. And this is not to mean you can never have a life and you should always put your time and effort into work-related things, but I grew up seeing a lot of my friends where they had a lot of extra time in which they were putting towards partying, where they were spending not only their money, but their time doing things that were really shitty return on investments. And realistically, I even did the same thing, even though I made sure that I was working enough always to pay down whatever I needed to pay down or to save however much I needed to save. There was still always room for improvement. There was still always room to look back and be like, this month I spent a lot more time partying or spending money on things I didn't need. And you know what? Next month, I'm going to cut down on this. I'm going to put my attention into a few more podcasts or read a few more books or spend one more extra night in on a month that I usually go out, or I'm going to spend one extra day a week putting my time and attention into learning a new skill or reading a new book or listening to a podcast instead of wasting my time scrolling on Netflix or not scrolling on Netflix, scrolling on TikTok or whatever. I just think that you really have to capitalize on your time, especially when you're young. And I know everyone's life is completely different, but I just think that there's just always, in my personal opinion, room for improvement. Now, I want to come back to talking about the 4 stages of wealth. I saw this on Pinterest and I thought this is a pretty accurate representation of actually how wealth is really built. So number 1 is stability. And this really just means making sure that you are out of debt, you have no debt, and all your bills are being saved, and potentially your savings are now being funded. And the second stage is strategy. And on here it says investing, obviously like putting your money in stocks, also making sure that your money is working for you. So this could be like an example of, let's say you're a content creator. When I put this video out, even as I go to sleep, that's making me money, things like that. But I want to talk about stability and strategy because, like I said at the beginning, a lot of people, especially in the finance world, they talk a lot about basically paying off your debt and making sure your bills are paid, but on the same coin, having a strategy in terms of investing and making your money work for you. And I think the reality is sometimes it happens in stages. Sometimes you can't do both at the same time. Sometimes you can. But just understand that it happens in stages. Like, it took me a few years to just be stable and make sure that my debt was paid off before I was even able to think about investing my money in the stock market. That's just not how I did it. And it's okay if you are trying to do everything all at once and you feel like you're just drowning, just focus on one thing at a time. For me, what I did was I just focused on my debt because I knew that was a thing that was going to really affect my credit and my future in the long term. Now, the third stage of wealth is security. So this is more about enjoying your money on the extra things and traveling and quality foods. And this is something that I had to be real with as well when I was focusing on financially glowing up was, you know what? Travel is not in the cards right now. I don't have extra money to travel. I don't have extra money to buy organic foods right now. I'm not going to stress about that. I'm not going to spend extra money on getting my nails and my hair and my everything done. This is coming back to where can I save money? I think, you know, for me, I grew up in the social media age in which everyone was spending, or probably not even their money, but showcasing the security of the third stage of wealth, which was the travel and the expensive wellness products and getting their nails done all the time and their hair extensions and all this kind of stuff. And I was trying to indulge in the third stage of wealth when I wasn't even focused on number 1, which was stability. And I had to get real with myself about that. So again, you know, looking at your situation, are you trying to do, and I don't really necessarily mean strategy because investing is always a good thing, but I think in terms of enjoying the extras of life, the luxuries and the everything, be real with yourself. How much are you really trying to indulge in that stage of wealth when really, most likely, it's best to focus on that first step of stability. Remind yourself, you can get to stage 3, but it was easier for me to try not to do stage 1 and stage 3 at the same freaking time because realistically, stage 1 was the most important thing. And then stage 4 is freedom. So money is not really an issue. Your quality of life really trumps costs. And this can be in the sense of, you know, I don't have to work another day, but I want to because I really like my job, or I'm not going to pick up an extra shift because I don't have to because all my bills and all my investments and all of my everything is all paid for. I think that's something that we're also always working towards. But I think, again, a lot of people really want that, which is totally understandable. But I think we are jumping the gun sometimes too quickly. At least that's what I did when I was in my early 20s. I wanted the time freedom. I wanted the security without really taking a look at what got me to the place that I was at in the first place and being realistic with myself and looking at my finances and saying, you know what? I got to put in some work here. I have to put in some work, but mind you, I will get there. I will get to stage 3 and 4. And now I want to say this. After I really mastered stability of getting out of debt and making sure that I had enough money to maintain what it was that I needed to maintain in terms of my expenses, and on top of that, working on my mindset and now figuring out where it is that I'm going to make more money, whether that be a side hustle in my career, and that can take however much time it's going to take. Once I really got into a good vibe, a good like cycle with that, I was able to invest. I was able to focus on extra luxuries like travel. I used to never be able to travel. I never traveled in my life because I didn't have the money to do that. But I was also able to then put a little bit more money into getting my nails done if I wanted it, or just extra things that maybe I once wasn't able to do because I was paying off my debt. I was able to do more of that. And on top of that, time freedom in the sense of, do I want to work today? Yes or no? Now, I have a very realistic mindset with a lot of things. I am not at a stage where I can just decide, I don't want to work for 2 weeks. Like, I could, but I'm not going to put myself in that situation because I have a lot of things that I still want to build. I have a lot of goals for myself. Also, there were many years in which I wasn't saving and investing. So a lot of the money that, yes, technically I could get my nails done, could get all these things done, I try my best to make sure that I'm putting my money in investments before I'm spending money on all the extra things, even though I make way more money now. I think that's something that you have to really think about when you do start making more money with whatever it is, or maybe you just don't have to pay down debt anymore, is, okay, well, there's always room for improvement. There's always room for saving and investing. So let's make sure to be responsible with those things first. And then I can think about, allocating some money to frivolous things or lifestyle things. So with all that said, let me just quickly go through the main points in which I think are important if you want to have a financial glow up. I think the first thing is paying off debt, addressing debt if you have it. I think that it's just helpful to make you feel more at ease with your life and setting yourself up for your future. You're going to need to address this. You're going to need to have good credit. You're going to need to not be wasting your money on high interest things because you just have debt sitting around. So sitting down and making a plan and seeing how much money you need to pay off and how long it's going to take you is very important. And I think you should do that sooner rather than later. Use a snowball effect if you want. You can Google other types of methods in which to pay off debt if you need to. Also addressing any high interest debts that you might have, but essentially most consumer debt is all real high interest. So that's just something to think about. And to be able to help you with that is to really look at where you're spending your money. How can you cut down and how can you make more money? Cutting down meaning look at the big picture of things. Can you get a roommate? Can you stop spending so much money on things that you keep telling yourself that you need to spend? Can you stop taking so many Ubers? Can you stop wasting your money on things that you're not getting a good return on investment in? Go down the list and see where you spend the most money. But on top of that, and honestly, I think in general, the way that I look at things in life is just make more money, because you can cancel your subscriptions and you can, cut down on spending. But at the end of the day, you're going to have to learn how to make more money eventually. So make more money. And I think I totally understand that people's situations are completely different, but please get resourceful. How can you make extra money at home? Can you freelance? Do you have any skills in which that you can use to be able to work part-time, potentially go into the hospitality industry and get a job where you can make tips? And even if you can't, can you pick up extra shifts, even 1-2 extra shifts a week, whatever it is? Calculate how much money that you could make extra if you do that. Or think about where you spend the most time outside of work and be real with yourself. Do you party 3-4 times out of the week? And if you do, I can guarantee you can use at least 2 of those days. And in my personal opinion, I used all 4. At least 2 of those days to pick up an extra shift. Or if you can't make actual money in that time, let's say for whatever reason, you just there's no way you can get another job, whatever, you can use that time to build a new skill, to learn something new, to find a way to eventually make more money down the line. The next thing, investing. Now, there's so much investing information online. My best friend is a finance influencer. If you want to learn everything really about beginner investing, I would suggest take a look at her TikTok. She has a YouTube channel and her Instagram videos or Instagram reels. Her name is Joy Yang. I'll have her information down below. But essentially, whatever money that you have now after having any debt paid off, I would highly suggest put it towards first a high interest savings account when it comes to anything to do with your emergency funds or money that you're going to be using in the next year, 3 years, any money that you might need to pull out, and then put money towards the stock market. But I'll just quickly tell you what I do. I essentially have 2 accounts. So I have a TFSA, which is an account that I buy stocks in, and this is my long-term investing portfolio. When I put money in this and when I buy stocks, I do not touch it. This is something that I'm going to touch, let's say if I'm making a very, very, very big purchase, but most likely this is honestly just going to be more of a retirement fund. But I also have a second account, which is a high interest savings account. This is money that I put in for not only my taxes that I have to pay to the government because I work for myself, but also emergency fund money. So let's say like extra rent money or extra money that I'm just not needing and I don't need right now, but I'm going to want to pull it out, because you don't want to pull your money out of the stock market unless you really have to. Like, that's a whole nother separate conversation. So this is money that's essentially touchable, but I really look at it as not touching any of that money. Like, that's just like savings, but I make like my goal in life is to always make enough money where I don't need to touch my savings until like I decide to not want to work. But I have two accounts. The reason why a high interest savings account is important is because you make a percentage back on the money that you put in the bank, because essentially the bank is borrowing your money. The bank is using your money that you have sitting in an account. So if you use a traditional banking account and you just have your money sitting there, whether like you have it in like a savings account or your checkings account, whatever, if it's not in a high interest savings account, you're not getting any money. You're getting a very small percentage, I'm pretty sure, return to you, which is like nothing with traditional banks. But if you put in a high interest savings account, you can get anywhere from like 3 to 4% return on the money that's just sitting in there. So you're basically making money as you have your money sitting in there. So it just doesn't make any sense to not have your money in a high interest savings account. I have a high interest savings account with Wealthsimple. I used to have it in EQ Bank. There's many other banks that you can have. So I would suggest doing your research, but I will link Wealthsimple. Wealthsimple is a great app, which I believe it's only Canadian. And I think EQ Bank is only Canadian. I'm not really sure, but regardless, I will have whatever I use in the description below. And then when it comes to buying stocks, so this is investing in the stock market. I'm not going to go through a whole rundown because like I said, I'll literally just like, you can go to Joy's page, but essentially I put a certain amount of money every single month into my TFSA, tax-free savings account, put that money in there every single month, and I buy a few different stocks. This money over time makes anywhere from 7% or more or a tiny bit less. It depends on the market. It's a long-term investment. So let's say roughly around 7%. So every single year, the amount of money that I have put into this account, I am on average making a return of 7% back on this money. So I'll give you a quick example. Let's say I put $10,000 in my TFSA account. This is where I'm buying stocks within this account, okay? $10,000. If I get, let's say, a return of 7% on average, I would have made an extra $700 in that account. So I'm going in to 2024 now with $10,700. And let's say I go into 2024 and I didn't even put any money into the account, which I still would. Even if I didn't, I am now making 7% on $10,700. So it's not just $10,000 every single time. Every year, the more money you put in, you're getting 7% on whatever money you have in that account, and every year it grows. That is compound interest. So it's super, super, super important and very, very smart for you to invest your money, because that is how people make money. You don't make money off of having your money just sit in a savings account where you're not getting any sort of return on your investment. Anyways, that's all I'm going to do for explaining that, because Joy is way better at that, and like you can totally do your own research, and it's very, very simple. And also it is important that you start as early as possible. That is why I said at the beginning, it is smart to invest some sort of money into the stock market if you can at an earlier age, because if you see the math over time, the earlier you start, the more money that you will make at the end of whenever it is, let's say you want to pull out that money or whatever it is. But if I'm being real, again, I didn't start investing my money when I started working on my debt. That's just not what I did. I didn't even have information about that. So do what you want. But anyways, now that I'm able to have extra money, this is what I do, because a lot of people say, well, like, how do you budget and this, that? First of all, it completely depends on how much money that you make, right? What I do now is I make sure my basic needs and necessities are all paid. So obviously like my rent, my food, whatever it is that I need to be paid. I have a lot of extra money. what I do is I take a percentage of my money and I allocate it to my high interest savings account along with my TFSA, and whatever money left over I have, because I make quite a bit of money, I will use towards entertainment or whatever. But because I have worked on my spending habits and being intentional with my money, majority of the time, the extra money, I either just throw it back into the stock market, or it will simply depend, because not every single month I do the exact same things. Not every single month I need money for this product or that product. And my friend and I, Joey, we talk about this a lot, about how like budgets, like it's kind of hard to stay on budgets sometimes, because like there's so many moving parts when it comes to finances and what you need to spend your money on and stuff. And it is really important to see like how much money you bring in and how much money you spend. And I think the early stages of being stable, it's important to have a budget. But because I am where I'm at in my life right now, I don't really need to have like, $100 for like entertainment, because I have enough money for that. But I will say, because I've worked on my mindset and being intentional with my money and being responsible with my money, there are so many months where I have a lot of extra money in which I never actually spent the way that I used to, because I changed the way that I view money. And so I just end up putting it back into the stock market or whatever. And a lot of people who talk about investing and saving and things like that, they'll tell you 10% of your money should go to your emergency fund, and then 10% or like 20% to stocks or this, that. Again, everyone's situation is so different. So for me to be like, like a good standard is 10%, like you should do it. I mean, I don't know. Like I put different types of percentages in each account depending on how much money I make and like what I want to do with my money. Now, whether you're paying off debt or not, or investing your money and saving your money or not, I think it is important that you spend quite a bit of time on figuring out how you are going to make more money. Now, I kind of already said this when it came to debt specifically, but I think of my situation when I was a server. I was a top server, okay? I had the best shifts. I was able to handle a lot of tables, and I was willing to work a lot, meaning I made a lot of money. Now, if I wasn't getting a lot of shifts, even if I was a really good server, let's say I just like wasn't getting a lot of shifts, or was at a place where it was very, very dead and I didn't have the situation that I would have been smart with my time, and I would have said, I'm going downtown Toronto and I'm going to bartend, or I'm going to work at a place that's busier. And I think that it's just important to know when to shift or when to make changes and be smart with where you're putting your time and your effort, because I think that that's just going to get yourself to where you want to be eventually anyways. Now, I personally have to bookkeep. So for my business, I have to track how much money I'm making, and then how much money that I'm spending and what I'm writing off as a business expense, as well as how much money that I need to put every single month towards taxes, which is not my money, and then also how much money that I'm going to put towards investing and everything like that. And I do that all in an Excel sheet, and that's more for my business. But what I used to always do, and I still do it now, when it comes to seeing how much money I make every month, or how much is my rent, and how much is my hydro, and how much is my car payment, and all those things, I literally just went on Google Documents and I just wrote everything out. And I did that every single month. And I calculated how much money that I needed to pay off for my debts, and how much money left that I had to pay off, like all that. I think sometimes we make things way too difficult for ourselves. Like, I need to get this planner, or this tracker, or this thing, and you really don't. Now, I think the biggest and most important thing, and I've already mentioned this, is to focus on your mindset throughout this whole entire thing. Understand the worst thing that you can do is to stress about money and where you financially are. Okay. And I know it's super hard. And again, definitely go listen to that episode. But at the end of the day, if you've made a plan and you're doing the best to put your time and attention to things that are actually going to give you a good return on your investment, like maybe not partying so much and instead learning a skill or picking up an extra shift or whatever you need to do, understand this too shall pass. If you are consistent and if you are responsible, understand that no one is really going to do this but you. Understand your beliefs that you have about the world and money and how you can make it. And, do you have even good beliefs about yourself in terms of where you get to go in your life financially or career-wise? Like, what are those limiting beliefs? Again, I would highly suggest checking out that journal guide if you need. Make sure that you are doing your best to be grateful for the things that you currently do have. I think that really, really helps. Get off of social media and stop moving around or watching people who are constantly telling you that you need this next designer bag or this, that, and the third. Like, have some tunnel vision for your life. Understand that you will get there. If I could get there, so could you. Do not even compare yourself to whoever is making more money than you or faster, or even myself, right? Like, it's going to be your own journey. You can absolutely do it. And you are going to thank yourself for deciding to finally get your finances in order. Focus on paying down your debt and working on your credit. Educate yourself on interest rates and credit cards and investing, all the things that you do not understand. Live below your means and get to the root as to why you weren't in the first place. Have a really big audit of where you are spending your money and why, and where you can cut down. Figure out where you can start making more money, even if it's only a little bit, and cycle through that process until you get to a point in which you are stable, and then you can move on to the next step of investing. And again, I'm not saying that you can't invest at the same time. I'm just saying where you can really focus on, throwing that money into those investments and making more money back. But on top of that, also thinking about, how can I make my money work for me? How can I work smarter, not harder? How can I build my career? How can I build my dream life? And understand it's going to take some time, and that is totally fine. I am still grinding. I am still working. I am still working through limiting beliefs. I am still trying to trust. I am still trying to not operate out of scarcity, and it's a process. So I hope this episode helped. This was very long. Please let me know in the comments if you want me to address anything else when it comes to finances. It's really honestly, actually very simple. I think we just are constantly looking for different ways to do this, that, and the third. And I think something that I always say is just to be consistent and understand that things will take time. And if you are consistent and you're patient and you stop having this instant gratification, you will get there much quicker. And if you just be accountable and you realize that this is a situation that you're in right now, it's not going to be forever, but this is what you have to address, you are going to go so much further. I promise you. I am so happy that I decided to grind when I did, because I am able to be sitting here, not being so stressed about money, and being able to now think about my future in a better light because I did that. So I hope this helped. Please let me know what you want to hear next, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.